This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Report, a show made by fans for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and coming at us today is our boy Anderson to give us this week's topics.
Well, this week we're going to run the gambit of Detroit Lions news because we got a little bit of news coming from everywhere outside of Lions camp. And then we're going to close out the show talking about the effect of the sports holdouts that have been going on over the past week and kind of the no play and how that's going to look in the future. It's a Fan Report.
Okay, well, I say we start off with some Lions talk here before we kind of segue into, I guess it would be a little bit more of a serious topic, or
we can go vice versa, whatever you like.
No, let's start with the Lions. Let's do that. So basically how I want to do this is, so there's just a plethora of news going around. I've got 4 articles pulled up here from several different sources. I mean, we're talking Det News, Sports Illustrated, MLive, Fansided, Freep, you name it. So I wanted to kind of go through these and kind of give quick takes on each article. This is all stuff that's being reported from camp, and kind of give quick takes, our thoughts on what other media sources are kind of talking about coming out of camp. So I kind of wanted to start off here with something our own, from Detroit Sports Podcast own, John Macron had written an article for SI, the All Lions page today. I believe he released it, about the possibility of Jeff Okudah not starting at cornerback come week 1, that he's just not quite ready yet. And I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on that because, mind you, SI obviously isn't the only one reporting this. I've seen MLive, I've seen Freep do it as well. So there's a few media sources that have reported this. So that kind of lends me to believe that maybe there is some weight to this. Maybe where there's smoke, there's fire here. So I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are on the possibility of Jeff Okudah not starting week 1. And does that worry you at all?
So I'll be honest, when I first saw the headlines there, I was pretty surprised because coming out of the draft, I should say, I had viewed Jeff Okudah as one of the most NFL-ready players, definitely the most NFL-ready cornerback coming out of the draft. But the more I think about it, I guess the less shocked I get, because you do talk about the fact that these rookies didn't really have much of an offseason to work with, on top of the fact that cornerback is one of the toughest positions to play as a rookie. So the more I thought about it, the more I kind of eased my worries on it. This is probably normal because, again, it's you're going into how often do we see a rookie cornerback start day 1? I do fully expect him to start sooner rather than later, but I guess I'd say I'm not too worried about Jeff Okudah not starting week 1.
I mean, I am, but I'm not. I am, just because of how highly touted he was and how we were led to believe by the Lions front office that this guy is the real deal, that he is ready week 1. He is the guy that's going to be the Darius Slay replacement. And I've heard some people say he's better. This was supposed to be the guy that was going to...
he better be better for where we took him.
Right. And he was supposed to be the guy to, fill the role and be the P squared, the Patrick Peterson for this Detroit Lions team, be one of the future leaders on the defense. And for him to not get the nod to start week 1. And, I agree. These rookies have not had a lot of time to get ready. This has not been a normal training camp for them. They had to do a lot of individual workouts as opposed to working out with the team and with coaches, and that's not normal for rookies. This is a very abbreviated training camp for them, so they haven't had the ability to learn. There's a steep learning curve here. So that probably is something that weighs heavily on this decision by Corey Unlin. It is Corey Unlin the one that's making this decition here. It is probably something that
later.
Right, and it is probably something that has weighed heavily on his decision making here. Is Jeff Okudah able to pick up the reads as easily? The NFL reads as easily on the defensive side. Is he able to pick up the defensive playbook as well? I mean, it's a new defensive coordinator, so new defensive playbook. Is he able to pick up an NFL defensive playbook? Is he able to adjust to the speed of NFL receivers or the physicality of NFL receivers? You don't have the same, and physicality is a big one for young corners, especially because you don't have that same physicality at the line of scrimmage with college receivers that you do in the NFL.
Yeah.
Jamming in the NFL is very different than it is in college football. And it's a lot more of a physical game off the line when it comes to the one-on-one battle that is the corner and receiver battle. So there may be some things that Jeff Okudah just hasn't quite gotten up to speed with just yet. I agree that he is going to start sooner rather than later, but it also leads me to believe that they have a lot of faith in Amani Oruwariye as well. This is a guy who really didn't get to play all that much last year, and a lot of people were looking at coming into this offseason that maybe he's going to end up getting cut. He was a late round draft pick. Was he a third or a sixth rounder?
I think Oruwariye was
a fifth.
I think he was like a fifth rounder.
I think he was a fifth. So he was a later round draft pick by the Lions last year, and he really didn't get much opportunity to play outside of in a chance where they had to play him because of injury. So some people thought maybe he'll be a camp casualty going into this offseason, and he's fighting for a starting job right now. So that tells me that Corey Unlin likes this guy a lot and likes his early on in training camp. He's been the guy who's been lining up opposite of Desmond Trufant with Justin Coleman in the slot. So that makes me believe that they have a lot of faith in Oruwariye, and it makes me think that, hey, this kid's really starting to blossom into a solid player. So maybe he's the guy that we should look at. Maybe it's not so much Jeff Okudah isn't ready or isn't getting up to speed, but it's maybe it's Oruwariye's ability to take the next step and become more of an NFL corner and a legitimate one to play out wide in that number one spot. So
that's a good angle to take.
It's a very positive angle to take.
It's a very positive angle, yeah. because when it comes down to it, it is for a true position battle. You have to have two people you're considering, and we can't just say, "Oh, Okudah's not good enough." Like there is the very very much possibility that Amani Oruwariye has maybe just been impressing in camp. I haven't had the privilege of watching anything from camp, but I would love to buy into that theory, and I really hope that is what is actually happening.
I mean, I do too. And how much of that, the article isn't really... These articles kind of go back and forth on it, and they talk a little bit about both, how Oruwariye has really taken a big leap, but then they go back to the other side and talk about how Jeff Okudah has experienced some growing pains and having issues, and I'm pulling this from the Free article here, but having issues in a two-man route drill. So there's some growing pains here for a guy in Jeff Okudah that hasn't had a lot of time to be able to pick some of these things up that maybe a rookie in other years when they've had a full training camp would have been able to.
Well, so, if you do want some evidence on your side for that theory, I just did some quick digging, and Corey Unlin actually did come out and say today that Oruwariye is more than ready to start. Like they asked him if he's ready to start, and he replied with he's more than ready. So
maybe that is what it is. Maybe it's not so much Jeff Okudah struggling. Maybe it's Oruwariye is stepping up and taking a big leap from what his play was last year, and maybe he's becoming a legitimate starting cornerback option for the Lions. And if that's the case, that's a good problem to have. Having 3 starting caliber cornerbacks on your roster is a legitimately good problem to have.
Oh, yeah.
And the Lions may end up running into that issue. And that's a good, like I said, that's a great thing to have. You know, you can never have too many corners in the NFL with the amount of speed that receivers have, with the amount of passing that goes on a game-to-game basis in this league. Having a plethora of good corners is a great thing to have. It's like pass rushers. You can never have too many of them. You just can't.
All right. Moving on to topic number 2. So it looks like DeAndre Swift has had a bit of a setback in camp. He's had a lower leg injury, and he reportedly has not practiced in, I believe, a week now.
About a week.
And coaches are saying that the longer he doesn't practice, the more uneasy they become. How worried are you about DeAndre Swift right now?
I am a little bit worried. When it comes to picking up the offense, I think what we'll end up seeing is a lot more of a smaller playbook run for DeAndre Swift early on in the year. And pulling a quote from Darrell Bevel when asked about the situation with DeAndre Swift, because like we mentioned with Jeff Okudah, this is a shortened offseason or a shortened camp for these rookies. They're not able to deep dive as much into this. They're having to kind of hit the ground running here a lot more than they would in other years. So for him to have a setback and not be able to be a part of camp for a week now when it's already a shorter camp for them, this isn't ideal. And that's the exact words that Darrell Bevel used. He said it's not ideal. We'll say that. There's a lot on these rookies' plates right now, just in terms of everything's new for them. Obviously, he's trying to pick up a whole new offense, and he didn't have the offseason. I think that's what's so critical, and that's coming from Daryl Bevel's mouth, courtesy of Det News, an article that they posted, looks like today. So it's not a good situation for DeAndre Swift. So maybe we do see a smaller playbook run for him, and they do lean a little bit more on Kerryon Johnson early on in the year until DeAndre Swift can get his legs underneath him ready to go. I still think DeAndre Swift is the more talented of the two, and I think we will end up seeing more DeAndre Swift altogether by the end of the year, provided he stays healthy. But I do think Kerryon Johnson is going to get maybe more of the third down reps to start, and maybe more of the special type plays that end up going into, when later on in the year, we see DeAndre Swift running more of those plays. So I do think it's going to affect some of the playing time early. Maybe not so much the effectiveness, because they'll be using him in roles that he knows how to run them and will be effective in them. But I do think it'll affect the amount of usage he gets on the football field for the Lions early on. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts.
I do worry about it. I mean, I think I'm kind of scarred with Lions running backs injuries from Javad Best and now Kerryon Johnson.
Let's see. Javad Best, Kevin Jones, Kevin Smith, Mikel LaSure.
It's just you just have a bad history in this backfield right now. So yeah,
hell, we can even go further back. James Stewart, I'm pretty sure, had some injury issues back in the day too.
As soon as I heard this story, I just kind of wanted to duck for cover. I'm like, oh God, not again.
Right.
But it sounds like they're optimistic that's not too serious. But at the same time, obviously, you do have to look at the fact that he is missing some crucial learning time. I would still expect him to, at least the first half of the season, still get around 5 to 10 carries a game. I think you can shorten the playbook enough for him to be able to manage that.
Oh, I absolutely think 5 to 10 carries a game. I'd expect at least 15 touches a game still. Not so much 15 carries, but 15 touches. Maybe he catches 3, 4, or 5 passes a game.
Because he is more effective out of the backfield than Kerryon is.
Right.
But I'm not gonna sit here and lie and say it doesn't worry me, because as a rookie, especially someone that we're putting as much stake in as DeAndre Swift, every day that you miss is crucial to your learning. And it's just I hope that Swift can find a way to really get himself acclimated, like put himself in the fast track to get himself acclimated once he's back. And I really hope that this isn't going to become a lingering thing with his leg injury.
I really hope not too, because like you mentioned, we've had some bad luck in recent years with Lions running backs and injury issues, and Kerryon is no stranger to that either. He's obviously got his own injury issues as well. So I'm obviously a little bit worried about that, but hopefully DeAndre Swift is able to get things in order and get back on the football field for training camp. So
now the good news is that unlike the cornerback position, I don't believe the running back position is as high of a learning, or as tall of a learning curve, or steep of a learning curve, I should say, as cornerback. So I
don't think so.
Rookie running backs don't find it as hard to adapt.
Right. I completely agree with that. I mean, you can run a set amount of plays for a running back that, he doesn't need to know a whole bunch of the playbook to be able to be effective. Obviously, you want him to know the entire playbook, but if you run 5 to 10 plays for a guy, or 10 plays for a guy, and he's able to learn those 10 plays and be effective in those 10 plays, he can still be a really good running back in the NFL. So versus a cornerback, there's a lot to learn for a young corner in this league. So, but let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Fansided had recently put out, Lions Fansided, which is Detroit Jock City, had recently put out an article about, actually today as well, the Detroit Lions coming out of their camp, 3 players excelling throughout training camp, and they list 3 guys here, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on it. First one is wide receiver Quintez Cephas.
I'm so happy about this one.
I am too, actually.
So this was a guy that I had on draft day, I had no clue who he was. But then the more I read about him, and I remember Okudah saying that this was the toughest wide receiver he had to guard in college, and all his former coaches, everyone had glowing things to say about him, and obviously he has a size that you would seek out of a wide receiver. But so this is a guy I was really hoping could kind of live up to not his draft position, but what his peers were saying about him, because he has the intangibles that you can't teach. It's starting to, I mean, obviously it's still training camp, but I'm starting to get more and more optimistic that we could have found a diamond in the rough in Quintez Cephas in the later rounds.
Oh, so the Lions getting a steal in a late round draft pick? What is that?
I don't want to get too excited because it is just training camp. But
right.
if you can add someone of Quintez Cephas' size and be effective to a wide receiver core that already has Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones and even Danny Amendola when he can be effective, I think you can have a really deadly receiving core if Quintez Cephas can actually come do something off the bat.
I mean, having a solid, and I'm not even talking good or great, having a solid option coming out of the slot or even out wide that's big in a possession receiving style receiver is such a great luxury to have. And the Lions have recently experienced that when they had Anquan Boldin here. How many big third down plays did Anquan Boldin get a catch for 8 to 12 yards for a first down? I honestly, I can picture several in my head of how many of plays where Anquan Boldin caught a third down pass for a first down. Yeah. And that's exactly what the Lions are going to look at Quintez Cephas to do. Whether it be out of the slot or out wide, he's got the ability to do both. And if he's going to be able to be that guy that can be a possession receiver, a trustworthy option on third down for the Lions to go to get that big first down, that is such a big thing to have. And if they're able to turn Quintez Cephas into that guy, that's huge. That would be absolutely gigantic for the Lions.
And just considering how many very talented receivers the Lions have in their receiving core, the fact that Quintez Cephas is standing out, I think that's saying something, personally.
I mean, okay, let's be real here. Like, hearing Kenny Galladay that is a standout in camp isn't going to really surprise anybody.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that, but like to be able to stand out among the likes of a Kenny Galladay or a Marvin Jones, that's what I'm saying. That says something to be able to stand out with that much talent around you.
Now, the next guy they mentioned is guard Jonah Jackson, and this is one that's kind of big for me, and the reason is because guard is a position that the Lions desperately needed to fill this offseason, and they decided to do it through the draft by drafting Jonah Jackson. And for him to be a standout in camp, that's pretty big, because this is, they needed to fill Graham Glasgow's shoes here. He is supposed to be and Graham Glasgow was a very versatile interior lineman for them on the offense side of the football. And for Jonah Jackson to have reports of him coming out that he is excelling in camp is huge, because the Lions O-line desperately needed to plug some holes, and not just to protect Matthew Stafford, but also to create some running room for DeAndre Swift and Kerryon Johnson as well. And if he's able to do that, like they're saying he is coming out of training camp, that's something that is huge for the Lions to have. Absolutely. You can, like I said, you can't ever have too many good corners. Well, you can't ever have too many good interior linemen or just offensive linemen in general.
And I remember when we drafted Jonah Jackson, it was similar to Quintez Cephas, as a guy that, although we took him earlier in the draft, I believe round 3, but he's another guy that because then again, like I'm not going to sit here and act like I pay attention to offensive linemen that much in college football, but he's a guy that just immediately after the draft, so many people came out and were talking about how sturdy this guy is in the offensive line and how much of a steal he was just being in the 3rd round. And it's another situation just like Quintez Cephas, where you kind of reaffirming that hope that you may have gotten another diamond in the rough later in the draft than, like, you might have gotten a huge value. I should say huge value.
Jonah Jackson, I believe, was their 3rd round pick.
Wasn't he was a 3rd round pick. That's what I was saying. Not diamond in the rough, but huge value at the 3rd round.
Right.
Because this is a guy that, like you said, you are going to need to step in right away and contribute.
Oh, yeah. He's penciled in as the starting right guard day one. So he's going to be expected to play a massive role. And he's obviously been competing with another guy they took in the 4th, or I think also in the 3rd round, maybe the 4th round, in Jonas Stenberg, who was
Logan Stenberg?
Logan Stenberg, sorry, when they went back-to-back interior offensive linemen in this draft. So, and it looks like Jonah Jackson is going to be the starting right guard for the Lions, with Joe Dahl taking up the left side, and then Stenberg coming in as the number 1 guy coming off the bench. So having some depth at that position and a guy who you can hopefully rely on in Jonah Jackson on the right side is going to be big for the Lions, because they've had a lot of issues with the right side of the line in the last couple of years, whether it be injury or lackluster play from some guys that they paid a lot of money to. So mostly injury, though. I mean, TJ Lang was having a lot of injury issues, and Rick Wagner had his injury issues as well. And then even when he was healthy, he wasn't all that great. So
it felt like it was Christmas when you saw TJ Lang on the field. Like, that's how rare it was.
I know. But going to the final guy that they mentioned here, it's cornerback Tony McRae, who this is a guy who I believe they signed off of free agency, basically followed one of his former coaches in Braden Combs, who is now the Lions special teams coordinator, followed him to Detroit this offseason. And what I am hearing is he's been a pass breakup machine in scrimmages this offseason and during camp. So maybe he's a guy who can step up into a big-time corner position. And like I said before, you can never have too many good corners. So seeing another cornerback name pop up as a camp standout is huge for the Lions.
And another reason why this would be really big is specifically Lions still do need some depth behind Justin Coleman in that nickel nickel corner. And Tony McRae could definitely provide that if what he's doing in camp ends up translating onto the field in the regular season. So being able to have that depth, and like you said, you can never have too many corners. Being able to have that depth in the nickel is going to be big for the Lions.
If only we were able to have that same problem with pass rushers. Now going on to the final article here, and this is courtesy of MLive here.
Like the Lions say, you can never have too few pass rushers.
Courtesy of MLive, we've got the Lions' new defensive coordinator, Corey Unlin, is going to be calling plays from the sidelines for the defense this year. Not Matt Patricia this year. It's Corey Unlin calling plays. My first question to you, Andrew, is do we see them blitz more?
Honestly, though,
they better.
I'm tempted to say yes because one's greater than none. Here's the thing. I was looking through Corey Unlin's history, and it seems like he's spent a lot of time as a defensive backs coach, both for the Broncos and with the Eagles. And other than that, he's been like a defensive assistant. So we don't have much history to go on in terms of him calling plays. Now, in terms of him being a defensive backs coach, could it translate to he's going to lean more towards not blitzing? And I can't honestly sit here and say I'm excited for Corey Unlin to call plays because I legitimately don't know what to expect. But I'm going to expect a lot of man-to-man because I do feel like Corey Unlin's probably, considering the fact that he comes from a defensive back background, is probably someone who trusts his corners quite a bit. And I would hope that he blitz more than Patricia, but I can't sit here and try to get anybody excited over Corey Unlin because, again, we don't have much to go off of in terms of history here.
I mean, we really don't, and you're right about that. But I think you look at how bad the Lions' defense was last year, and then you look at the data that talks about how little the Lions blitz last year, like way less than anybody else in the league, and I mean way less. Like I'm looking at a chart right here that the x-axis is blitz rate, pass rush win rate is Y. Like, the Lions are bottom left, the worst you can get. And there's no one really even that close to them. It's bad. It's real bad. So to see, metrics like that and see figures like that tells us how bad the Lions defense was last year, really makes you believe that, okay, maybe Paul Pasqualoni, who is no longer the DC, and Matt Patricia later on in the year weren't calling the defense the right way.
Well, Patricia was calling it no matter what, right? Wasn't Patricia calling the plays even with
defense? I think maybe he was. I don't know, but either way, they weren't blitzing enough.
A scapegoat.
They were way too conservative, so maybe they will be a little bit more aggressive this year, or a lot more aggressive this year, because they kind of have to be. Aggressive defenses tend to win in the NFL. Let's be real.
I'm just not optimistic about it because it's not like...
Well, it's not like we stacked up on pass rushers either.
There's that, and it's not like Corey Unlin has any kind of like track record where he can kind of...
I mean,
push his way in the defense. Like I feel like he's still gonna somewhat have to do what Patricia wants the defensive end. He's gonna get to call a specific play.
Right, but look at probably. But look at his history though. Look at the teams that he's been on in the past between the Broncos and the Eagles. Both those teams have a very legitimate history of blitz every chance you get.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe he's going to bring some of that philosophy here in Detroit and make something happen with the defense. Now, do I think they're going to, blitz tops of the league? No, I don't. I don't think they trust the corners enough. I don't think they have enough defense, ability to do that. I don't think they have enough pass rushers to do that. Or skilled enough pass rushers. I think there's a happy medium here that's going to make it work. So hopefully there is an improvement with the defensive line this year and the Lions defense in general. But it does lead me to believe that maybe Patricia is learning here, hey, I got to focus on other things. Maybe allowing someone else to take control of this defense is the right route to go.
That's where the positive stroke on the story is.
Yeah, I'd 100% agree with that. Allow Patricia to focus on game management and Corey Unlin to focus on defense. But
I feel like we're playing the wild card here.
Right. I wanted to throw one more in as kind of a curveball to you.
Uh-oh.
How scared are you of the Vikings trading for Yannick Ngakoue? Yeah.
See, part of me is like, I like the offensive lineman that we were able to snag this year in the draft, and I feel like we have an improved offensive line. But again, I'm scared.
Because that defensive line's already pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And then you add Ngakoue to it, who, mind you, they got for a second round and a conditional 5th round pick.
So between the Bears twice, the Vikings twice, I'm scared for Stafford. I really am.
I am a little bit too. I ain't gonna lie.
I'm not too afraid of the Packers front seven, but I'm afraid of the
fact that you gotta face that twice, and you gotta face Ngakoue twice and Khalil Mack twice. And mind you, there's also some other pretty damn solid players on the front seven for both the Bears and the Vikings already, and they added Ngakoue to the Vikings, and then obviously Khalil Mack's still there in Chicago. That's terrifying.
It's just disgusting.
Is there any division in football that has better pass rushing?
No.
Oh man.
But like, I don't know. Like, what do you? Okay, if you're Stafford, how is this affecting your psyche? Like, are you able to go in with a clear mindset into week one? Well, like, I don't think we're playing the Vikings week one, right? That's who we got, I think.
Bears week one.
Bears week one. Either way, are you able to go into the season with a clear mindset and not think? Because like me, I'd be like, all right, what week is it that I'm going to die? Like what week? Like, just don't.
If I was Matthew Stafford sitting in my home today and I read that article, I probably would have balled up a piece of paper and threw it at the wall.
Yep.
I probably would have thrown something at the wall. Little bit of anger. But damn it.
I'll tell you what. I think we're going to be having to use tight ends as pass blockers more often.
Well, yeah, I'd probably agree with you. Hopefully, T.J. Hawkinson can continue to be a solid blocker in the NFL, and we'll probably have to use him as well as some others. But let's go ahead and change gears a little bit here. So recently, we have seen a lot of protests going on in not just the NBA, not just Major League Baseball, not just National Hockey League, but everywhere, all over the place. And primarily those three sports leagues is where we've seen it in the national media coverage that, the sports world, to the point where we've straight up seen games not being played.
NBA playoffs were on hold for what?
Right, and so were the NHL playoffs. They canceled some games. So did Major League Baseball. They canceled some games. We saw games not being played in response to protests by players and staff and league staff in response to the Jacob Blake shootings in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And then I've been hearing reports about there's some NFL players who may sit out the season to protest. Will we see? And my question is, what kind of ripple effect will we see? And how do you feel about the protests of not playing games? And what are we going to see in the future from this?
I mean, it's for me, like when looking at the practices in the NFL and the games in the NBA, it's the players using whatever means that they have at their disposal to send a message, and you got to support that. It's peaceful protest is what people want to see, and it's something that sends a message and a message of urgency. Like if you want to see basketball played, things have to change. Now, I'll be honest with you, I was surprised that the Lakers and the Clippers were the only two teams that voted to not play the rest of the playoffs. I honestly did expect more teams to be like,
I did too.
We're going to sit out until something changes. However, I was happy to see that there was some reform within the NBA of allowing players more avenues to voice their opinions and to make changes in terms of social justice, or to affect change, I'd say. But in terms of what we can see in the future, I do think that players are slowly realizing how much of a voice they really have, and
how
like
much
with the NBA,
power the player holds.
Exactly. And like with the NBA, with these new, I'd have to pull up the article to remember the exact things that got put in motion for the Players Association to have at their disposal. But you're going to see a lot more social activeness. Is that the right word? Or social activity? But you're gonna see a lot more in that front in terms of NBA players. You're going to see them take a lot more initiatives to try to affect change. And then in the NFL, I'll be surprised if I wouldn't be surprised if COVID put a stop to play before players stop playing.
I'll agree with you on the NFL because the NFL seems to, if there's a hurricane outside, guess what? We're playing. We don't care.
But I don't think you're going to see, for example, for the NBA, I don't think you're going to see any more stoppages this season, at least.
Not unless something else happens. I do think that it really does show the power of the player, and whether it's a situation of, okay, you don't want to listen to us, fine, we won't play.
And in your opinion, do you think they should have held out for more games or for longer?
I don't know. I don't feel like I come from a background, or I'm not sitting in a position where I can honestly and comfortably and really knowledgeably answer that question. I have my own, I am who I am. And while I feel for the racial injustices that are going on in this country, and I don't really want to get into too much politics and all that.
Yeah.
And I do believe that this country is in desperate need of some major change when it comes to a lot of different things, including how we police in this nation. I personally am not. I haven't experienced it, so I don't feel like I can say that I can sit here and say, yeah, I do think they should have held out for longer. I do think they should have held out for more games, but I'm not directly affected by it, and I can't really say yes or no, and I can't put myself in their shoes. So I don't know how exactly how they were feeling. I can only tell you how I was feeling, and I was very angered, and I still am, and I understand. I understand why they're as upset as they are, and why they're as angry as they are, and they should be.
Coming from my perspective, I come again same as you. I haven't been unfortunate enough. Unfortunate. That's a weird way to say it. I haven't been unfortunate enough, but I haven't been in that position either. But what I am comfortable saying is that because I forced myself to sit and think how much change would just holding out of basketball games really affect. But then the other part of me is why not try and see?
It can't hurt.
I just there's part of me that's I feel like there wasn't enough pressure put by just holding out for the couple games that were canceled. I feel like I kind of wanted to see what would happen if they
just ended it, if they just canceled it.
Really getting antsy. See, I wouldn't even say just cancel. Just keep it's on hold indefinitely until you guys do something.
Right, and
I wonder if it would have
it's a situation. It's one of those things where it can't hurt. Let's add this to the pile of pressure. Yeah. You won't make change? Fine, we won't play. Neither will National Hockey League. Neither will Major League Baseball. You have no sports going on now.
Yeah.
Oh, we won't open our store. We won't open our restaurant. You keep adding to the pile, and eventually changes are going to have to be made because what else are they going to do? They don't have an option at that point. And so I kind of agree where maybe if they would have sat on it a little bit longer and said, we won't play until something happens, maybe that would have been something to look at. And I wouldn't have been surprised if they did. I was a little bit surprised, like you said, that the Lakers and the Clippers are the only teams that said, we don't want to play. And now, obviously, they ended up changing their tune and switching around and saying that we will play. But I was a little bit surprised they were the only teams. I would have thought that a lot more teams would have said, we will not play. But at the same time...
I was surprised the Bucks weren't on that train.
Right. And I'll be honest with you, I do think there was a little bit of pressure from internal pressure from themselves as competitors and as just human beings in this country that we've gone through such a crazy time this year in particular.
Yeah.
Where we haven't had sports, and we had to wait so long to get these NBA playoffs, and we had to wait so long just to be able to go outside and do things with other people. And so now that we're at a point where we can do that, we can watch sports, we can get the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs and Major League Baseball, that they're just going to stop again when they really were fighting for it to begin with. So I do feel like there was a little bit of internal pressure for some of these players that, hey, we fought for this, so we need to play, kind of a deal. So, but at the same time, I was still pretty surprised that there wasn't more teams that said, we will not play until there's a change made. We need to just end this. But in terms of a long-term ripple effect, I don't know. I hope that there's a ripple effect. I hope that there's drastic changes made. And I hope that there's, this wakes some people up. I do.
I agree. And shifting the focus over to the NFL, like I said earlier, I would expect Corona to cancel a game before the NFL or the players did. But do you see it happening? Do you see a similar situation happening in the NFL that just happened in the NBA? Do you actually see the players being like, maybe in like week 3, like, you know what, like something happens again, and they're like, you know what, we're not playing this week?
I do think if something were to happen again, yes, I do think there will be some players that say, I'm done. I will not.
So you think it'd be on an individual player basis rather than the whole team?
Yes, I do. Okay. I think if something else happens and it's gets big enough national media attention to where, yeah, maybe there will be a whole team that will band together, much like the NBA, that'll say, we will not play this weekend. And maybe you see another team, and then the NFL will have to act. But I do think
of a year there's been so much turmoil surrounding sports.
Oh, I know.
This year, man.
This year's been awful. Awful. Just Uncle Cliff died. Cliff Robinson passed away.
Jeez, I remember I went to bed with Chadwick Boseman passing when I woke up the Cliff. I was like, what in the world?
It's not been a good year at all. At all. But no,
R.I.P. to both of them, by the way.
Yes, absolutely. The Chadwick Boseman one really caught me off guard. So did Cliff Robinson, but
I was on FaceTime with my buddy Alex helping him draft prep. And like we're like in the middle of doing a draft, and he goes, whoa. I'm like, what? He's like, Chadwick Boseman died. I'm like, what? Like, really?
Yeah, I was blown away. I was shocked. But
we couldn't really focus on the draft after. We were just kind of stunned.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, this is a different conversation for another time, but what is Marvel going to do?
That's, yeah. I mean, I don't think they should. I think out of respect to him, they should just.
I don't know.
I don't think they should recast the role.
I don't know. Anyways, but in terms of the NFL, if nothing else were to happen, now let's say everything gets better, nothing else happens in terms of, we don't see another situation like what we just saw. Does the NFL have any type of protest? I think the most we will see is like what the NBA's done with the jerseys, or players are allowed to wear individual cleats with statements on it and equality statements and racial justice statements and things like that. I don't think we'll see anything beyond that. And the reason is because, and we've seen this far too much in this country of, it'll just go away. We turn the other, we let time try to heal this wound that will never heal, and we forget about it. And that's something that we can't let happen with something like this. But I do think I honestly, as much as it sucks, I honestly do believe that what could happen if nothing else bad happens.
Yeah.
And it would suck. And do I want to see the NFL play? Yes. Do I want to see all the players play? Yes. But I do think something needs to change, and I do. I mean,
this is the first year that Goodell is openly coming out and supporting everyone kneeling to the flag.
It's about damn time.
Yeah. Did you hear what George Hill said? Because I don't know if you know. So like George Hill, like he was still in the locker room during the national anthem, and like after in the post game presser, they asked him, like, was there a specific reason that you were still in the locker room during the national anthem? He goes, well, if you guys want me to be honest, I take a dump before every game. And I was like, damn.
Oh, man. Before every game?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because my pre-game ritual for coming out, I take a dump. And
that's like weirdly regular. But anyways, I don't want to get too far. We already got way too into the politics and all that, and I don't like doing that. That ain't what the show's about. So,
we do try to get your mind off that stuff.
Right.
Here, but sometimes things are just too glaring to ignore. So,
selfishly speaking, I am glad basketball's back. I am glad hockey's back. I'm glad baseball's back. And
we couldn't have been more like. I feel like the Clippers and the Lakers were listening to us last week because they both turned up all of a sudden. Like Paul George all of a sudden became a god. Lakers all of a sudden started clicking.
Playoff P, baby. Playoff P.
It's like, wow, when we trash them, now all of a sudden they're going to...
It will be great to see NFL football. I hope the NFL plays their season without a hitch and everything goes back to normal. And I would like to see that. Obviously, a new normal, with some changes made here and there, but normal. And we get to feel comfortable again. But so, anyways, though, do you have anything else to add?
One other side topic. It's not even Detroit sports related, but I don't know if you've been seeing the altercations that have been going on to Marcus Morris and Luka Doncic.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to ask you if you thought, because there's been a lot of debate going on about what is like in terms of like is Marcus Morris playing dirty? A lot of people are saying that he's taking the bad boy route against Jordan, but the players aren't allowed to defend themselves anymore. So Doncic can't take it in his own hand. All right, I do have one other thing. Speaking of Doncic, by the way, Skip Bayless tweeted that in no way, shape, or form is Doncic a top 5 player in the league right now. Do you agree or disagree?
No, I totally disagree. Skip Bayless is the worst takes of all takes, and every take he has is terrible. Yes, Luka Doncic in the here, right now is a top 5 player in the league. Name 5 players better. Let's be real. Let's be real. He's playing better than LeBron is right now.
He's averaging what, like 30, 10, and 9?
I mean, Giannis.
I'll give you Giannis. Maybe I'll give you like Kawhi. Maybe.
Okay. I mean, sure, we'll put LeBron up there. Can you name 2 more?
No.
Exactly.
Durant's not playing right now.
No, Luka Doncic in the right now is a top 5 player in the league. No question.
Are you mad?
Dude is legit.
If you're the Hawks, are you mad that you traded him for Trae Young?
That's
you still got a stud in Trae Young.
You still got Trae Young. Honestly, like I'm very happy with what I have, but at the same time, I'm sitting there going, "Damn, could have had. Damn, could have had."
I honestly feel like if like teams like the Pistons knew how good Doncic was actually going to end up being, I feel like they would have sold the farm to move up to get him.
Dude's real deal. Dude is the real deal. Mm-hmm. And to answer your question about Marcus Morris, dude has always played dirty basketball. Always played dirty. So, yes, he's absolutely playing dirty on Luka. Not to say that I don't like the way he plays.
I don't have to see the footage. You just got to tell me Marcus Morris. I already know what you're talking about.
Not to say I don't like the way he plays, because I do like his game. But, yes, he's playing dirty.
Yeah. That's all I got, though.
Alrighty, that is going to close it out for today, guys, and this week. Thank you so much again for listening. We'll catch you guys next week. Andrew, thank you for joining me, and thank you to Detroit Sports Podcast, as always. This has been the Fan Reporters by fans.
For fans.
And thank you again. Follow us on Twitter at RealFanReport to comment, yell, rant.
And keep the discussion going.
Talk topics, whatever. We will catch you guys next week. Thank you again. Have a good one. Peace out.
Peace.